At this time, we will call to order the regular City Council meeting for June 24th, 2019. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Lisa, let the roll call show. Everyone is here. I just got a text from Councilmember Walton. She will be joining us. She's just running a little bit behind. At this time, we will look to approve the minutes of June 10th, 2019.
I move the minutes.
I'll second.
Anyone with discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the bills. We do not have any bills this evening, so we'll move on to the approval of tonight's agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we will open the floor for public comment. Please remember that there is a 2-minute time limit and to state your name and address, please.
Hello, my name is Judy Keeling, and I live in Colonial Acres, 62180-5 Arlington Circle. Mary, your mantra is volunteer. So I just want you to know that the policeman, chief, and Sergeant Doug comes to Colonial Acres for coffee Monday mornings, and I always put them to work, and they always do it. So thank you. And also, my friend Margie and I and my son did 18 hours of gardening at the McCaddy's Historical Village, from the sidewalk to the sign. So I want you to know someone really hears you.
Thank you, Judy.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was fantastic.
Thank you, Judy. Did we have anyone else for public comment this evening? Okay, we'll move on to the discussion of the downtown this evening. Mr. Donahue?
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. All right. I've got a few extra items I'd like to go over tonight, but I promise to keep it quite brief, but it's maybe somewhat more extended than usual. As you know, you continue to get the report from Paul, and just a couple items on Paul's report for the week of June 17. It's really exciting to see the response at in-kind contributions to the Veterans Memorial, and we'll have more information in the next 2 or 3 weeks to go public with that, tie a bow around it, and then have a formal announcement of where we're at with the Veterans Memorial. I want to, once it's all the in-kind contributions are done, go back to the VFW and have a presentation to the American Legion Post, and then after those 2 meetings, then really make it public. I think it's going to be great. Continuing to develop that final version of the business survey citywide. I think we're on time with the timeline. I've been communicating with members of a new group, small group with representatives of retail, industry, people with survey background, retail, industry, and office and restaurant. In fact, we're having a meeting on, which is noted on the timeline, day ahead of schedule. Thursday, we're going to meet with that group to try to come up with a final version. And I appreciate all of council. I've either talked to you or received input from everybody. So you all met your end of the bargain for the timeline. I appreciate that. Another item is that, as you know, the over-the-road banner was put up We talked about it. We talked about it for about 3 years, and finally got it done thanks to the team, Rob Vogel and his crew, DPW, and police department, and the DDA. So we thank that whole team of people that finally got it up. It was great. Probably some little tweaking of it. Rob mentioned maybe we'll go up and tighten it up a little bit. Get a hold of Oakland County to trim the trees in the right-of-way. That one tree is a hazard. It's about 50% of dead wood in that tree, closest to it, of course. So we're going to get that taken care of. We've had some calls to City Hall. We always do. But some of us have received emails. Some of us have received phone calls. There always tends to be, when things are going on, a degree of impatience. We want it all now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of a good sign because everybody wants something. They want things to be better. I know I tend to be, just ask Paul, I tend to be a very impatient person and want to get things done immediately, and I know that can't happen. So I wanted to give you and the public kind of an extended, not a naive rah-rah session, but kind of a feel-good short report on our progress. And for those members of the public that kind of wonder what's going on, and some may not even realize yet with our two buildings. So I'll get into it quick. I'm going to talk about quickly what's happened since 2016, how we relate with the county and nationally in our third year of a management program. So basically, I think these are tremendous numbers, and you've seen them in the two different annual reports. But just to rehash, the private investment in downtown South Lyon, July 1, 2016 to June 30th, 2017, the period of that annual report, we had $2,166,000 worth of rehabs just in the DDA district. In that 1 year alone, $2 million. We had 3 buildings sell. Turnover of our historic buildings or any building means new rehabilitation and new investment. Not only the sale of the building, which is a separate category, but it's still investment. But then it's always followed up with the reinvestment to rehab the building. So the 3 buildings that were sold, 399 South Lafayette, Good Day Cafe, 115, 117 North Lafayette, Venue and Exquisite Kitchens, and 134 East Lake. Boy, I am drawing a complete blank. 134 East Lake. Anyways, it sold for $350,000. So the total of those 3 building sales was $1,400,000. So for just the first year at council's direction that we started a downtown management program, we had $3,566,000 of investment in year 1. Let's go to year 2. Year 2, private investment from July 2017 to November, a little longer period. We had $2,201,000 in building rehabs. Those are interior, exterior, site improvements, and expansions. We had 4 building sales. 101 North Lafayette, 105 North Lafayette, 110 North Lafayette, and 115 East Lake. And those totaled $1,735,000. So the private investment just for the second year of the program was $3,936,000. So when you combine, well, we got a little more. Now we've got private investment just from November of last year to today. A lot of activity. So the third year that we're tracking, and we'll do an annual report once June closes out. But we've had 2 building sales, one at $125,000, 111 and 113 North Lafayette, the Bonner buildings, and 135 East Lake for another $135,000. So that's $260,000 in just those 2 building sales. So what is our total to date for the first 3 years of the program of investment downtown? $7,762,000. I think that's incredible for the first 3 years of the program that you made happen as a council. So what's the forecast for those 2 buildings, the 2 Bonner buildings? the forecast between now and next June. In fact, the forecast for 111 and 113 North Lafayette with a complete facade rehab and new businesses is $450,000. Of course, we won't count it until it's done. That'll be in year's 4 report. 135 is forecasted to have an investment above the sale of $1.2 million. So what is the forecast for just up until July of this year? The forecast in the real is between June of 2016 and now is $9,412,000. Not bad. Not bad. Let's look at some other aspects of progress to date. We've embraced the Main Street program, so we're tracking all these statistics. We're tracking everything in the 4 areas. So let's look at the accomplishments just last year. Economic vitality, business investment and job creation for downtown. We've had over 70 new jobs in just the past year. The industries in the city of South Lyon, we've made contact with them, and we've had plans for development of and expansion of all of our major industries. We certainly, as this was in the last fiscal year that ended last July, we finally got the no truck turns implemented. We went through and completely redid our liquor license. Our liquor license process and our ordinance, rather. Organizationally, the DDA, again, set its projects and priorities for the 2nd year in a row. So they're getting a comprehensive management strategy that they feel comfortable with. We regularly list the top 20 economic development and downtown issues. We did that again for the 3rd time last February. We had our 3rd annual board retreat last February. We continue our 2nd year of holding a downtown business and property owners meeting the 4th Thursday of every month. The DDA bylaws were amended. Promotional items, we've been tracking all the events held downtown and citywide. And in your packet, a project really pushed by our city manager is you have the events guide. And those are being distributed throughout the city. They're a companion piece to the business directory. The farmers market season has been performing well. This year is even better. We held the first all-day Motorfest last year. We created a banner policy just last year. The all-time most successful Ladies' Night Out was held last year in November. The downtown's Kids Trick or Treat event in October was the largest ever. We've been featured on the front cover of Lyon Today, the South Lyon Herald, and we've competed in National Small Business Saturday for 2 years in a row. We're going to continue that. Design-wise, working with building owners to get our architectural heritage. We do not have an ordinance. People are doing it because they want to do it, because they care. And so I think we've really started to create a historic preservation ethic. It reminds me of Marshall, Michigan. They didn't have an ordinance. It just meant a lot to people. And they're one of the leaders in preservation in Michigan, Marshall, Michigan. Well, we can be too, and we're fast making progress even without an ordinance, which I do not recommend, and we're making great strides. So I think the buildings downtown, 4 are in the process of being painted. There will be 5 that will be rehabbed, that the rehabs will be completed by the end of the summer. So I think it's a huge year for our historic architecture. Our partnership with the DDA, between the DDA and the Cultural Arts Commission started last year, and we're really starting to see that effort come to life this year. I think there's a lot of things that we should be proud of. And, we take things for granted or we lose track where we've been when we started 3 years ago. So fast forward, what has happened since April of this year? The weather breaks And we're on a fever pitch to have probably our greatest year ever. Here's what's happened already. In April, the 2 Bonner buildings sold. That is 111 and 113 North Lafayette. And I know a lot of people in the public might not understand because they don't see the progress there yet. At 111 and 113, the green building or the art craft building, there is a rendering and there's a coming soon on the window, which is very encouraging. That project, the architecture restoration should be done by October 1st. That's the target. And tenants will be in place hopefully by Thanksgiving. That's the report there. 135 East Lake, the stone building, of course, the Planning Commission, it's on the agenda that we've had pre-development meetings with both owners for their building plans. And so at 135, we may finally soon have our first new upscale restaurant in the downtown. It looks very encouraging. Complete historic restoration and the addition of a 3rd floor on 135 East Lake. So we are lucky. And again, those were voluntary compliance with National Historic Design Guidelines. Just because those people care, and we've all worked together to create this ethic to take care of our identity, our sense of place. In addition, in May, we saw new trash barrels downtown, the first 10 of 20. The others will be delivered in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so we'll have all new trash barrels downtown, made by a South Lyon business. We're national leaders because they are getting contacted by national publications about being leaders in using recycled materials to build our trash cans. It's a first for us, and we're getting a lot of attention, and you'll start to see more of that. We have new flowers by a new company and more new flower containers downtown. Our farmers market has had more participation to date at this point of the year. Thankfully, because of the weather, but we've had more vendors involved than ever before and more sponsors than ever before. So we really have to be thankful for that situation. We mentioned the first over-the-road banner since the mid-1960s. Now, if anybody knows or has a picture of the last one, but when you go to Colonial Acres and other people, I was going to say, Carl, you might have the best knowledge of that, but if we would love to get a picture of the last over-the-road banner that was supposedly in the 1960s, mid-1960s. So maybe the folks at the Historical Society. So are we on track for our downtown development? Are we on track for where we are since we started managing the downtown? Well, the national experts say we are. Both the National Main Street Center and another national expert called Donovan Ripkema. And this is why. And this is an item that we will put online. It's been in the annual report. When you start to comprehensively manage a downtown, the first 2 to 4 years or maybe 5 years is when you start to change the culture. Mm-hmm. And one thing that all of you folks have done religiously is you've always supported downtown 100%. You may have difficulties agreeing on some other items, but downtown has been 100%. That's huge. So that gets us to the fact that in the catalyst phase, which is usually 2 to 4 years, we're ahead of schedule. Because usually in the organizational phase, you don't see buildings rehabbed. You see DDAs learning how to do their job better, trying to convince council that downtown's important. But we don't have to do that anymore. So we're actually going from what's called the catalyst phase to the growth phase. And that in that growth phase, it's where you kind of get into the some issues. People don't always agree. Again, we have to continue to educate. It's where, people don't understand the difference between, the incentives that we could offer or the incentives that we will create policies to actually offer. It's maintaining. Don't have the sense of feeling that we can back off because we've come so far. Maybe this position could be part-time in the future. That's generally an item that comes up in communities that start to see success. Not everyone may agree with me, but I think we need to, if we're going to manage downtown and continue the momentum, as long as I'm here, which I hope is for a while, I would like to see this position even when I'm not here in the future, full-time. So I think we're getting from the catalyst to the growth phase, and we're ahead of the game by at least a year. So if everybody will be patient, there's a lot of great things happening. So the bottom line, we're on target. We get compared to Howell. Howell started managing its downtown and using Main Street in 1999. And they've received some national recognition. But they started, look how many years that is. That's 20 years ago. So Milford started in the mid-1980s. Plymouth started in 2000, really deciding to comprehensively manage it. Northville in the mid-1980s. Brighton in the 1990s. So 3 years in, I think we should be proud of the fact that even though we're small, we have a retail vacancy rate of 1%. We have an office vacancy rate of 3%. Those are numbers people would die for. So even though we're small. So I want us to feel good at where we're going. I think you should all be proud of the impact you've had with where we're going. And the future's very bright, but right now it's very bright. That's it.
That was
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks, Bob. Does anyone have anything for Bob tonight? Councilmember Friesian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, thank you for the recap and the presentation, because I think that is so important. You're right. First of all, you can't argue with facts. If these are the numbers and these are the stats, this is incredible. This is really good. So we're getting there, and it may be slow, but we're definitely getting there. We're making progress. And with that being said, too, I think there was a growth period, like you said, for Howell, for Brighton, for Milford, and they all went through a lull as well at some point. So we're going to get there as well. There's a long way to go, but thank you for all the work that you're putting in and all the businesses as well. We can't support them enough.
It's a team effort. It's really, there's no one that's, it's no one person or one group. It's the whole team. It's the business and the property owners. It's council and the DDA and the staff and the administration, our department heads.
I do want to mention, sorry, cut you off.
Oh, that's good.
I do want to mention, I did receive an email. I know Glenn received it. I'm not sure if the rest of council did either, but there was a constituent who brought up a concern about the downtown and our growth and how things are going and measuring that against the master plan. And I think it would be helpful for the record, because although you gave us a lot of helpful information tonight, can you clarify on the record for not only us but our constituents as to, do we have a way of measuring between how we're doing, where our growth is, where we're at right now at the downtown, against the master plan?
I think the master plan is a flexible guide for the future. I think you as a body adopted that plan 2 years ago, after my first year here. I think it is a very good plan. Mm-hmm. It's a physical plan for physical growth and development. And I think what you've seen is that plan is for kind of everything north of the South Lyon Hotel and everything south of the intersection, south of that one block of buildings on East Lake Street. So it's like from Norm's Lot, everything south of the coffee shop. Everything down to Reynolds Suite. And that plan, we are actively having conversations sometimes every day. Every week is a different week talking about the progress on the master plan that we would like. We might have a conversation, like I was going to say, daily, weekly, or at least once a month. Once a month, got a lisp there. Once a month by someone who's interested in investing in that area. It's a matter of price. And some of the buildings, as you know, the realtors are all involved. In fact, we have realtors working for property owners that don't even have their properties for sale, both in the south area and the north area. They're trying to combine properties, and I have met with those realtors and property owners in both ends of town to try to assemble property for developers who like our master plan.
That's great.
Who feel we're business friendly, because the word's getting out about our pre-development conferences that we have. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of discussion. But the master plan encourages the historic preservation of the existing downtown. The downtown component talks a lot about historic preservation.
So the way I was thinking of this was, is it possible maybe every quarter to say like, hey, this is where we're at right now and this is how we measure against the master plan?
Sure.
So like once a quarter, you come to us like you did tonight with your presentation tonight was excellent, and this is exactly information that I think everyone needs to hear too. So thank you for bringing it forward.
I think master plans, though, quickly though, are classically frustrating
Yes.
because we cannot dictate and tell a property owner that they must sell.
Yeah.
The pictures and the concepts are exciting, but this is America, and so
There are rights
building the momentum. I think that's building the momentum that we have is going to lead to that spin-off, and the spin-off is outside of the core historic downtown in those areas. So we're getting ever closer, but we cannot force those issues.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Bob, I have one more question for you too, and I won't hog the floor. I can't remember if it was last year or maybe the year prior when you first got here. We talked about an action plan. Do you remember? Does that sound familiar? We talked about putting together an action plan for the downtown and steps moving forward, and it was a very organized system into where we are, where we're going, and what the next step will be. I was a couple years ago. Do you remember that? Are we still doing that?
The DDA, for as far as downtown is, the DDA has taken a kind of a, because while I can advise and suggest,
Yeah.
I'm only the director of the DDA. They are feeling very comfortable with the Main Street program.
Okay.
And we do have, actually, the parts of the annual report are structured as an action plan.
Perfect.
We can emphasize that more in the next annual report. But we're getting to the point where that each event, and Paul sits in on the meetings as a voting member of the DDA, we are requiring moving forward. This year, we set a goals and objectives. Every event needs a detailed budget and a work plan, and those collectively become an action plan. So really, this year is our first year to get serious rather than talking and suggesting about an action plan. This is the year where it starts to come together.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, I just wanted to say that I'm getting tremendous kudos from people in the community that have never stopped into the downtown area and are now going in, stopping in, visiting, walking around. Believe it or not, there's people that have never been to South Lyon's downtown. I'm sure you have heard of that. So I think that is a good thing that we are hearing, is that individuals are obviously noticing the change. I think also I want to provide you with as much encouragement and support that I can, because I'm a little bit of a disruptor myself, and that's what you are. And you have to change that culture. You have a culture in that downtown that did not want to dust off their shelves, put new paint on the walls. You have some businesses in there that haven't changed the paint in, 30, 40 years? You walk in there, and it smells like a moldy basement. You have people that haven't changed their windows, haven't upgraded, haven't done anything. And frankly, I don't even know if they care. The problem is that it affects everybody. So you need individuals like yourself that have the backbone, that are willing to fight these battles and change that culture in the downtown and say, if you want to survive, if you want to have value in your real estate, if you want to have your inventory sold so that at the end of the year you're not doing a write-off, then you need to come to this dinner and bring something to dinner. And that is, you need to bring a commitment. I can't thank Mary Poole for what she is doing to her building. Outstanding, outstanding. Not that the other owners haven't done it, but she has been on this horse ever since she came into town of how the downtown needed to change, and finally people are getting it, if you know what I mean. So I just want to give you all the encouragement. You're probably going to make a couple more enemies along the way, but you know what? That's just part of the job when you have the vision for how things can look, and I think you have a great vision. So I want to thank you for that. Additionally, I just want to bring to your attention nothing that you don't already know, But if you have the opportunity to move forward with any projects in the downtown area or encourage any of those businesses, the interest rates are very low. And so what is aiding that downtown right now is that you have very favorable economic conditions that are permitting these business owners to get into the financial markets and to do some borrowing at interest rates that they have never seen before. Now, we'll see what the Fed does later on this summer in terms of interest rates, but this is a fabulous environment for getting out there and borrowing money and start putting it to good use. Additionally, we also have a very good job market. And so that job market is providing individuals in the community with additional disposable income to actually come into that downtown and spend maybe, $50, $60 a month or every 2 months, maybe with their family at the hotel or maybe over at Lake Street, or going in and buying gifts, in one of the stores that they otherwise wouldn't able to do because they were watching their pennies. So right now you have very favorable economic conditions for pushing whatever you need to push through. And I would suggest you get as much done within the next 6 to 8 months, because who knows what's going to happen then. But I think your interest rates are going to stay fairly low, at least for that period of time. And that's what's helping you. But you're just doing a fabulous job.
A quick response to part of that is that we maintain close contact with the Small Business Development Center at Oakland County. And they always issue us an update of the SBA finance rates. And so you're dead on. So then I let the developers who expressed an interest know. I typically always let them know. Or the building owners that are on a list of probably could use some upgrades. And so I do maintain that contact with people. So thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Bob, I just want to echo what some of the other council members have said. I appreciate the update. It's very thorough, and like they already have said, you just don't notice what actually is taking place as you drive by it on a daily basis, okay, until you actually sit back and look at everything that's been accomplished. And I also want to recognize your efforts in the overall effort as well, okay? I realize it's a team effort, but what you brought to the table and some of the tools that you brought, like the Main Street program, et cetera, have been obviously instrumental in helping move this along. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Walton, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To echo on that, I absolutely love this events guide.
That's a push by Paul.
Well, I would like to see this get delivered to every home in the city. This is a great thing to put on our fridges so we know when to be downtown. Because a lot of times I hear from people, I didn't know about that after the fact.
Yeah, it's all citywide too.
Absolutely. So I would love to see this in a mailer early on in the year so people can get it on their calendars, on their fridges. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
Of course. We're in a terrific position here now, and it's somewhat circumstantial. We have the bane of people that have been here for decades with all the new people that are moving in, and oftentimes it seems like anybody, once they move in here, they want to shut the door and no more growth. But nonetheless, we've got a market that's just growing hugely around us, making our downtown that much more valuable to everybody that's got disposable income. They'd rather drive a couple of miles rather than 10, 15 miles. So if we can keep on this trajectory, keep enticing people to make a difference down here and change the downtown, that'll be very helpful. And it's really useful to have you here in that you've been there before. So the path you're not blazing a new trail. You're recreating what you know has been successful, and that's going to end up being to our benefit. Just a comment to Mary's comment about the master plan. Our master plan, it does have a good balance, but it's a flexible document. So people have the ability to kind of get a sense of what the direction is for any particular location in the downtown. And if it isn't a substantial departure, there's enough leeway to be able to make a lot of things work that aren't necessarily painted into that spot. So, I don't want anybody thinking they're looking at the master plan and it's only a one-way street. You can only do exactly what's in there. So, and Well, that's enough. Everybody's already said what they needed to say, but.
Thank you.
But I mean, this really is great news. We're finally getting the break that, having a couple of landlords kind of move out of the picture has opened up the downtown, so that's really come to be a blessing for us.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
We will move on to new business this evening. At this time, I'd like to welcome down Doug Anderson. And Paul, if you'd like to take a moment and explain the explanation of what we'll be discussing.
Doug Anderson of People's Express Incorporated has contacted the city and asked to have a discussion with council regarding the procedures for their transportation. They're having high usage by the residents of South Lyon. They accommodate our residents above the language in the contract, and you want to discuss the fact that they're going to be abiding more closely to the rules in the contract within the future. He's here to go over those items tonight.
My name's Doug Anderson. How you doing? I'm here. I've got some things I'd like to pass out to you, just so you would. You may need them if get some calling in. I'm just a bearer of
Thank you.
bad news
Thanks, Doug.
of what the first gentleman just said.
Thanks.
Actually, we've doubled, and that's all great, and it's great for you, and it's great for us. We've actually had 3 other townships and 1 village in the area that would like us to do their transportation. That's good. Thing I'm worried about, and when I called up and I talked to Lisa and I talked to Paul, I wanted to tell them that I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be getting a lot of calls. You'll be getting a lot of calls. about
Doug,
transportation.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Would you mind standing by the mics just so I want to make sure that
Better?
our residents at home are able to hear what it is you have to say? So thank you.
The problem being, we have a contract. It's a driver and a bus for 8 hours. Well, if you look through those are just some notes that we have. Sometimes we're doing close to double that, 16, 17 hours to get your residents to where they want to go. So I'm not here looking for money, and I'm not here looking for other things. What I'm telling you is I'm going to have to tighten up. I'm still going to get everybody where they want to go, but just in your town, you're doing like 400 trips, a month. That's I don't know, quadruple of what it's been in the last 10 years. The problem is I have to bring several other vehicles in just to do this. There's a lot of reasons for it, and I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. This has happened with your town. I think this is like the 4th year that it happened, or not, this isn't, but 4 years ago it started happening, but it was more like spurts, so it wasn't a big thing. You guys liked us, and we liked you, and that was it. It wasn't costing us anything. The last couple of years, it has started to cost us stuff. Now, some of the things that I might have to do is literally put somebody on a bus for half hour, 40 minutes, just to go down, Pontiac Trail. And that's because I'm going to have to come off and pick up somebody, and that's the way we're going to have to do it to get down to Kroger, and then it's going to turn around. The gentleman before me was talking about all the jobs that was created. I take several of those people to work. So that sort of gets in the way of medical and people that want to go to these restaurants you're talking about. We have now at least 3 trips to Novi, to Providence Hospital, a day. And that's 3 times as much we usually get, okay? We used to handle, like maybe 1 a day. You have 4 or 5 wheelchair users each day. That used to be Up to 5 years ago, it was always maybe one a day, 1.5 a day, that kind of thing. So I'm here to tell you that we're going to have to cut back on a lot of things, not your transportation. We will be able to do all the rides that are in this town for your residents. What we won't be able to do anymore, like, is the Providence, the Walmarts, all those things. Providence alone, every time we leave here, it's about a 45-minute trip before they're back. And if you do 3 trips a day, which is what we're averaging, that's almost 3 hours, 2.5 hours of the of the 8-hour day that we're paid for. So we don't have that vehicle in your town for your transportation. So anyway, that's what I wanted to come here and tell you. I actually wanted to just tell Paul and not have to get up in front of everybody, but that's our problem. And I do know that everything is growing so nice. I got one little story that's nice, you guys will love. I bought a place, fixed it up. I'm not a house flipper. I'm nothing like that, okay? I fixed it up. Took me a year, doing all the stuff. And me and my wife actually, got over there to sleep. And one night I slept in that house. And the people around, I don't know how the word got out, but all of a sudden the realtor that I bought the house with called me up and said, I've got a deal for you. So I never spent the second night in the house. I've slept in your town one night last year, and that's it. And I owned the house for actually 13 months. So yeah, you have a nice place, and my problems are just problems that come with having a nice place. I will be able to transport all your people. It's just that it's going to be tough, and it's not what they like. So that's where we're at.
Doug, if you wouldn't mind, it sounds like we have a couple council members that would have some questions for you. I want to just thank you for coming out and stating what the problem is. And there's going to be multiple steps to this. With the absence of a true newspaper really here anymore, and getting this information out to the people it's going to affect most. So we're going to have probably some questions for you here, if you wouldn't mind. Sure. Councilmember Friesen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Anderson, thank you for coming tonight and taking the time to tell us the concerns. My actual concern is spot on with what the mayor had just mentioned. How do we let everybody know that, hey, these are the new regulations, because you won't be going to Providence anymore. You won't be going out to Ann Arbor, West Bloomfield, et cetera. And I know for us it might be easy to post on Facebook or post on the city's website, but if you have an elderly individual who doesn't maybe have Facebook or have electronics, can we post it in the newspaper? Can we put it up in, coffee hour, whatever it might be? How do we get the word out?
Well, the only things I was thinking, first of all, I was going to hand out flyers. I just wanted to do all this after I talk to you and let you know.
Yeah.
I'll be handing them out to all the people that actually ride. We will be dropping them off at the senior centers, all this kind of stuff. And we can do that. And I already have an ongoing ad in, which I got to take away because I don't want anybody to know about it anymore. But in the Colonial Acres, they have 3 different papers there. So I'll be helping out with that in there. But I'm with you. After that, I really don't know.
And I think that'll
I'll
help.
get it across to most of the people.
I think so too, especially with word of mouth that generally travels pretty quickly. But I'm going to turn my attention to Paul. Paul, are we going to do anything on our end, posting it on the city's website perhaps, or the city's Facebook page?
We can do that once we get the information. I was not provided that information, but we can circulate that as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool.
Does anyone else have anything for Mr. Anderson? Councilmember Kibble, go ahead.
I'm just kind of curious. I think that there's probably some people that do rely on the ability to get People's Express to take them to Providence. Is there potential for trying to get some kind of coordinated effort so that groups can go, and it might not end up being the most convenient for them? They might have to wait longer than at the hospital or something than what they might be used to, but
No, we've researched the whole thing.
Okay.
What we'll probably end up doing is maybe taking a trip out there in the morning and to go along with something that I'm going to be doing, like for Wixom or something, where I'd be bringing somebody back into your town. So that's it, you know.
Okay.
It's not a deadhead trip. And then I'll have a trip in the evening. And,
So it won't be
my-
completely cut off.
No, it's not
so,
going to be,
yeah.
none of it's going to be complete. It's just going to be, I have a feeling you'll be getting calls telling you how bad we are. But we're not bad, we're just going to have to pack them in. Part of having one bus, one vehicle is, you know, a lot of people think that it is a taxi. I mean, that's the way they like to treat it. And we can handle, 15, 12, 13, 20 people, it all depends on the bus. But a lot of people don't like, especially seniors, especially elderly, frail seniors, they don't like that big steps up to it, things like that. But we're going to have to be doing that. We're going to have to fill the bus to get everybody where they want to go. And if you were to call up and want to be picked up at 9 to go to somewhere in town by 9:30, I may have to pick you up at 8:30 because I'm going to be picking up everybody along the way. A lot of the problem is, and this took a while for me to find out, but we've got all the data for it. We used to do your transportation, and it was, Colonial Acres was probably 50% to 60% of the people that rode the bus. Now it's not that way. Colonial Acres is probably not even 30% of people ride the bus. So you have a lot of people from their homes. And homes are a lot different than driving down Colonial Acres and just picking up everybody as you're going through there. Yeah. So it's a little different. And the people that do get onto Colonial Acres and they want to go to Kroger's, let's say, they really don't want to come over and pick you up while they're in the bus and then get back, So that's what we're going to have to do.
Well, I
And we will
appreciate
not-
the fact that you've thought this through pretty thoroughly, so you've got a strategy to still make it successful, yet
Sure.
not quite as convenient, but I'm
But you
happy
will,
to.
I just wanted you to know, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Don't shoot me.
Well, I appreciate you coming out and helping get this news out, that you guys are going to have to make some adjustments in the service. Did anyone else have anything for Mr.
Yeah,
Anderson?
more.
Oh, yeah, okay. Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Mr. Anderson, I'm one of your regular customers, okay?
Okay.
I go to Walmart's, usually probably 6 times a year, okay? And I enjoy, picking up the other ladies, mostly all ladies today.
Oh, yeah.
And,
That's a camaraderie thing. That's a nice
yeah,
one.
and we all know that there's a definite Walmart day, and there's a bunch of other people that go to the Myers. I've never gone there, okay? And then there's the Kroger people, okay, that go out to Kroger's. I've never gone there on that one either, but the Providence trips, I was in Providence today, and I couldn't get my ride. Somehow we goofed. I couldn't get my ride with you. It was, oh, you were booked solid. So I had to make other arrangements to get there, and I got lucky and found an old friend coming out the door. I got a ride back. I'm used to that kind of thing, all right? But if you're willing to listen to it, we might be able to schedule our doctor's appointments or whatever division we're in, okay, for your generalized Providence Day, okay?
That'll be good.
Okay, where you could be assured of getting 6 people, let's say, 4 to 6 people, 8 a.m. for a Providence run, come back by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. All of them drop them off at the different buildings they go to. Because I've been on several Providence runs, and some of them go to other places down Grand River. They don't go right in the hospital area. They go to another clinic for dialysis and such. Anyway, I'm just letting you know there's some other possibilities, okay? And I'm sure I would be willing to work with that scenario, okay? And other people probably would also, if it was available to us. Thank you, that's all.
Sure. The Providence is the hospital, and the dialysis is, those are things that we're going to figure out a way to do. Walmart, Myers, that's not hospital, it's not high priority.
Yep.
And that's going to hurt, but those are some of the things, that's all. Anyway, any other
Oh, but
questions?
thank you.
Yes, thank you
Thank
for
you.
taking the
Thank you.
proactive
Yeah,
step
thank you.
in getting this
Yeah.
information out in advance.
Thank you.
We will move on to the budget this evening. Okay. And with nobody with anything on the budget, we'll move on to the manager's report.
I want to update council on a few things. We received representatives from Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes Energy came out and did an inspection and compliance regarding regulations of our sewer treatment plant. With the hiring of our new director, which will start on Monday, and also items that we've placed within our upcoming 2019-20 budget, we're going to be complying with those requirements that are outlined within their report. I have outlined for you, and we have designated the 22nd as when Michigan Seamless Tube and the DEQ will be coming and giving a presentation to council. We're working with our company that did our website, and we're going to be redoing our website. Staff is currently reviewing and developing ideas and concepts for this. I will be updating council at a later date as we start to move forward. One item I wanted to bring that was also in your packet, we were approved to receive funds from Oakland County for their pilot local road program. That's the first time we've ever received those funds. So that'll help with doing some maintenance and crack sealing and some repairs on roads within the city. Next meeting, we will be coming forward with you for that agreement to receive those funds as well. Mr. Donahue has identified some items relating to the downtown. We want to make sure that everybody understands that we still are working with other commercial and other residential development outside of the DDA. So we'll be bringing things before council at a later date, and I'll be discussing with you some of the items that are coming before us when we meet with our group in our meetings that we have with our city hall departments. We did mention also within your packet regarding number 4 well going down. That's the one that's located at McCaddy Park. We have that as well as another well to well number 2 to try to get upgraded. And we have items into and applications into the DEQ so we can make some of those repairs so we can ensure that the residents of the community as well as the businesses have an adequate water supply for not only their use but also for firefighting purposes as well. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Friesian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Paul, I have a question for you. I've noticed the trend in the government is going green, and people are getting, or governmental bodies are getting Surface Pros or iPads, things of that nature. And we, as a council, go through an enormous amount of paperwork, and also our employees at City Hall have to do a lot of scanning and spending a lot of time making copies. I don't know how the rest of the body feels, but would it be possible if we could get an estimate on how much it would cost for us to get Surface Pros or iPads or something of that nature for us to maybe take a step forward and be a little bit more environmentally friendly? I understand that there may be some training involved just because not all of us are tech savvy, but there may be grants out there. We could get training, and it may cost us $8 to $10,000 to get, 7, 8 Surface Pros or iPads, but it might be an investment that's worth looking into.
We have already started to look into it. The
Excellent.
costs are not even half that amount to do that. There would be training that would be required, but that is a policy, and that is something that council will definitely have to all agree to. What I can do is I can bring something back before council at a later date to talk about some of those items.
Thank
But we
you.
did look at that and see the amount of money that we would save in actually in packet preparation, the cost for the paper, getting things out to the public, but being able to have an iPad or the Surface for individuals to use. I've done that at another community, and we saved a lot of money as far as time and preparation. And whether that's across the board, everyone, or just certain council members, it starts to move us to that area of green that we want to have in order to save cost and obviously save trees.
I did not know you were looking into that. That's
Yeah,
excellent.
we've talked about, amongst staff, the clerk and I have talked about those things and how we potentially can save money in the future.
Very cool.
And we can be prepared to, provide something in the future. We have not identified that within this year's budget, but it was a topic for discussion that we had within the office already.
Could we put that on the books to maybe get some quotes, throw some numbers out there, whatever it is that you think is proper, and that way we can revisit it. And even if it's not this year or next year, just the fact that we're taking a step forward to be a little bit more environmentally friendly is huge. So thank you so much.
Yes, we can definitely do that.
Thank you.
I was going to interject, and I will come to you next, Councilmember Walton. And I applaud your effort on, and you and I did try, and at least me personally, I don't recall what device you were using. I tried to use an iPad. I was having problems being able to keep up with us moving through the packet and being able to keep up. So it would be my suggestion that we would look at a device that would allow you to use a mouse or something like that to allow you to move through the documents a little bit faster. That's just my opinion. Councilmember Walton, I know you had something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Paul, because I did bring that up several months ago, and I'm glad to know that you looked into it further when I brought that up. We did both try it, and I had the same issue. I couldn't keep up at the meetings because I wasn't only printing the pages I felt pertinent, so I was missing items because I did not have any handheld device to bring with me. So it would be
Okay.
that we're looking into it. I'm glad you took us seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anyone else have, Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
I like the idea, and it didn't really dawn on me, the idea of trying to scan through that. I can't imagine how sometimes in a conversation you're shuffling through because you know that you sort of earmarked a page, so you know exactly where to go for it, and that would be a little bit more complicated. I think they still do have like a tab or something up on the top.
Yes.
But, I mean, and the idea, I always write an awful lot of notes on my agendas and stuff, so, but I could always just print the pieces that I needed to write notes on, so.
Well, and just now that we're on this topic, I think it's all important for us to be trying to recycle whatever it is that we're not
Sure.
using or whatever we're not keeping in our files. So, it may not be for everyone, but it certainly could be something to look into to help alleviate some cost.
With that, could we make that an agenda item in a future meeting?
We
so
can definitely do
we could take
that.
actual action on it?
Yeah, we definitely could do that, and I can bring it before you and get you some numbers regarding costs. And I will tell you that in each community that I've worked in, we have done that. We've moved to that, but there's always a couple members or a member that does not go towards that. But we can still provide a savings of on 5/7 or 6/7 of cost of something like that.
The only reason I brought that up is a lot of times we have a tendency, we make a request and just assume that it's all going to be taken care of. They'll research the daylights out of it, and the person that made the suggestion is the only one that really thinks that that's a valuable thing. So we need to end up making sure that we have a majority of people that are interested in having a conversation. So
I will update you within a manager's report and then look at putting it on a future agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Paul.
Councilmember Kennedy?
And while we're on the topic of recycling the paper for those who don't keep their packet and everything else, feel free to drop that off at the Salem South Lyon District Library in those green and yellow bins out in the parking lot, because the library gets money for the paper that's collected out there.
That's a great point.
That's
Thank you,
awesome.
Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Richards, you had something to add?
Yeah, I'm very happy with all the IT developments, but my particular question, Paul, is regarding the Peerless efforts on well number 4. Now, Peerless has been our contractor for many decades, okay, and fixed us up with all our well needs. Okay. I know that the strata underground, that where they draw the water from is, fairly wide. It's like 40 to 60 feet wide and 80 to 100 feet down, okay? Why do they want to put in an offset well? We don't have a superintendent to interpret this for us, okay?
We do have qualified staff, and what we did was we looked at what they were doing and what needed to be done. The well pipes that are down there, there is damage that is within the well and the casing. To make that repair to the casing, they would need to do an insert within that particular that casing. So if it is 12 inches wide and now you go to 10 inches wide or go to 8 inches wide, you restrict the amount of flow that that well could potentially pump. And we want to make sure that we have an adequate supply. So instead of doing a costly repair that will not get us the adequate supply that we want to have from that particular well, drilling an offset well and maybe it's 10 feet away and going the larger diameter will give us enough water and service that we need, the gallons per minute that we need for the community.
Okay, okay, they're experienced, they know their pipes and underground, and I imagine they've dropped a camera down in there to look at it.
Yes, they did.
And so on and so forth. Okay, I'd just like to see a little bit more information, okay, regarding the depth they're shooting for, the water volume they're anticipating. I mean, we get plenty, but just the same, I'd like to see a little bit of that, Paul. That's all.
And I did provide within your packet the what the projected amount of gallons per minute. We're looking at right around 1,000 gallons per minute that we're looking at that particular location. They did drop a camera in there. Myself as well as additional staff were there when that was going on. We did see the problems that are associated with that well, and that's why we need to do this very quickly and make the emergency purchase to get this done, file the application with the DEQ to ensure that we can do this well in a timely manner, because we do not want to have restricted residential flows or fire flows within the community.
Okay, are they going to have to put up a new building next to this existing building?
It's going to be similar to what's out there at the other location at McAdie Park. The offset well that you kind of see outside that's surrounded by the fence, same thing would occur there, but we want to enclose that as well.
Okay, all right.
Councilmember Welton?
Thank you. You actually just answered my question by saying we are going to enclose it, because I did email you earlier this week. The residents that live right there, all they have is a chain link fence. They are feeling very much on display. There's a lot more activity in that parking lot and in that water area. So they'd like a privacy fence or a wall of some sort, noise wall, something.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is the location which is near the tank that we have. This one's more located on the north side where the well is. But I did look into that because you were talking about putting a fence along the west end of the area where we do have the tank, and that is something that potentially could be shielded, because we do have other parking lots that are shielded. At this time, we're still looking at that particular location, whether we decide we're going to be putting another tank at that location or we're going to be putting something across the street. We don't necessarily have it included within this year's budget, but we will be reviewing that when we get the results back about the capacity tank that we need to have as the backup so we can repair that 1 million gallon tank that's right there.
Okay. And currently in that area, there's a lot of construction going on. I'm not sure what
Yes.
it has to do with the electric lines. And all of their equipment is staged in that parking lot. So those residents are feeling very much in a fishbowl.
Gotcha.
I'd really like that looked into sooner. Maybe the company that's there can put up a temporary wall, some type of enclosure.
It's not within this year's budget, but it doesn't mean that we can't. The fence that we're talking about that I was discussing was more on the north side where the well is, near where the playground equipment is. This fence is something that's completely different. If that's something that's desired by council, then we can definitely look at that. It is not included within the budget, so we would be required to do a budget amendment to put any kind of fencing along the side for the residents.
At our cost, maybe at the company that's staging their equipment, their cost, put up some type of generic wall, blue tarp wall, something like other construction companies do for areas where they're working along the highway and they're blocking off
Oh, I see what
homes.
you're saying. Okay.
You know, anything to do for these residents. It's very unfair for this to happen in their backyard.
Councilmember Kill?
I was just kind of curious, the gas lines that are going in, is there a ETA on when that's going to be complete?
We've not received anything on that, no.
No. That's all just consumers doing it on their own?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
I'll say something on that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Just for your information, you wouldn't know this, Paul, but if you look at that hole up at the corner, southeast corner near the Methodist Church property, you see a large, appears to be water main in that hole, and there's also a green pipe. okay, which is a gas line, but that's Panhandle Eastern pipeline from years ago. And it goes strictly to the tube mill. That is not the Consumers Power gas line. There's another one in there, underground, because I've taken pictures of it previous years myself, okay, but there's more than just one or two lines on that stretch of road right there to have to be mindful of, and that's why they're doing it. I hope they get it right, okay? Anyway, I just thought I'd add that to you.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to check and make sure that the bids are getting ready to go out July 1st with respect to the projects for the DPW yard.
Well, I met with the engineer just today to talk about several of the projects. One's the cemetery, the surveying that's going to be done there. Two, the sanitary sewer line that's going to be going underneath the railroad tracks. Three, the inspection of the sanitary sewer system for the city, as well as four is the DPW regarding getting the contract done for doing the land balancing and removal of material first at that particular site. So we did have that meeting to talk about those things.
Okay, I just wanted to know, when do you think the bids will go out? Because are the bids ready to go?
No, the bids are not ready to go. We have two things that we're dealing with at. One is the storm sewer improvements, and one is also the pavement. What we've identified in this year's budget is $170,000 for the storm sewer work. The first work that has to be doing is hiring a contract to begin the removal of material on site there so we can put in the detention facilities. And then the next phase of that is actually the installation of the storm sewer. That all is going to be contained and all going to be included within this year's budget, though.
Okay.
Anyone else with anything for Paul this evening? Great. I would like to start something a little different too going forward. In a meeting like this, we didn't hear from Chief Sovic or Chief Vogel, and if you guys, I know you know to speak up, but I'd like to, every 2 weeks, at least recognize you, and if you guys have something to add or say, at least you'll have a moment to do that in case you guys don't get a chance to speak during the meeting. So tonight we'll start with Chief Sovic if you have anything, and Chief Vogel if you have anything, head on down.
There will be temporary closures on the rail trail this week between McMunn and Dixboro throughout the week. Just general tree trimming, removal, and some landscaping and mowing. And then June 29th and 30th, it will be completely blocked off for some utility work. The second one is, for those of you that follow us on Facebook, we had a couple of posts this morning. One was we had a pot-bellied pig that was on a loose that we had to round up. And then shortly after that, we thanked Dr. Buffano from Buffano Eye Care for providing lunch for us. And one of those items were pulled pork sliders. And we just want to let you know that there was absolutely no connection between the two whatsoever. And just purely coincidental, just want to let you know that.
Thank you, Chief. Does anyone have anything for Chief Sovic tonight? Chief Vogel, you good tonight? Come on down.
Good evening. Two quick things. The grant for the imager, the camera came in. We're excited about that. We got it in service this week. As I was listening about the People's Express, I had a concern. I think it might increase ambulance calls. I'm kind of curious to see. I'm going to watch the numbers. We're already breaking records. We're like 100 runs ahead of last year. And I'll be curious if they can't go to Providence and if they can't use Lyft or Uber,
Right.
will an ambulance be beautified?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Part of the run increase has been the ambulance is so busy that we've been getting called. So I'd be kind of curious to see what that does to us.
Right.
Unintended consequences, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I was just listening, I was just kind of curious of something to watch out. Now, it was interesting to see that he's not in Colonial Acres as much as they used to be,
Right.
but we are there
where you're at.
daily,
You're there,
Yeah.
and I'm just kind of curious.
Councilmember Parisi, you
Yes.
had something?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Vogel, so knowing that information and understanding that there's probably going to be an adverse impact, are you going to just let your team know, train them to be prepared
we
for
do
the
that
influx?
a lot.
Right,
We
and
train
you already
on that.
are. Yeah.
It's something that with the dispatch that we have, that we were having troubles getting to the calls we needed to go to and maybe going to some we shouldn't have been going to. But I think Part of the problem was training with them.
Yeah.
We train a lot on medical stuff and fire stuff. Tomorrow, we're going to be in the Big Mun House. If anybody sees us training, that's where we're going to be tomorrow.
But if you can, which I'm sure you already are on top of it, monitor and continue to monitor, so that way we as a council can understand what's going on and what this impact will
I'm
really
working
be.
on a report that I'm going to give to Paul after July 1st to kind of see why these runs are so escalated. I mean, 35% is just extraordinary. It's not normal, so I need to try to run the numbers down. We're getting called to go outside the city a lot. That's part of it.
Yeah.
And then we're in Colonial Acres a lot.
So if that's impacting your department for some reason financially, let us know, because then
Well,
those amendments would need to be made to the budget to
Paul and I
account for
work
that.
pretty hard, and we're under budget.
Okay.
Councilman Richards was asking about the ladder truck. Well, we didn't spend all that money, but still, the line item for wages, I think we're still going to be under, which I'm
Okay.
pretty proud of.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did increase it for next year, because I am, if this continues,
Yeah.
if we went from 700 last year and we're going to do 800 or 900 this year, that could have an effect.
I anticipate it will. Just keep us posted, what you
Yeah,
need.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
If I could just
Yes.
point something out, that if there's a tick up on your activities, you guys giving a bus ride to people is a lot more expensive than People's Express, so we certainly have to give that some consideration.
And it might be too early to project that could
Sure,
happen,
but if we
he's
see
if he's
that
going
evidence, right.
Providence 3 times a day, and he hopes to cut it down to once or once a week, because I
Right.
wasn't clear on what he was saying about that. They have to get there. If it's i.e. Lyft, Uber, or HVA.
Right.
That's the 3 options they have in there, and sometimes they feel uncomfortable taking a Lyft in case they have oxygen tank to be carried or assisted to the ambulance. So.
Councilmember Walton?
While we're on the subject, perhaps when they go to Colonial Acres to present the change in the runs, we can send a representative there to teach these people how to call for Uber, how to call for a Lyft. Give
Yeah,
them other options, or when
Yeah.
they call into your
It would be
station,
interesting.
if we could say, here's some other recommendations for you.
Yeah. Because it is expensive to go by
Right.
ambulance. I mean, I'm not discouraging it, but, I don't, $20 Uber, $500 ambulance.
Yeah,
So,
actually, Councilmember Walton, that is a fantastic idea, and I think it's going to be essential that we get this news out to our folks that this is going to impact the most as fast and as efficiently as we can. And honestly, I think that might be a very, very good idea to just go and I'm not volunteering. I'm not putting anyone to volunteer. I would go do it, but maybe we could do some sort of auditorium presentation on how you can do this in case People Express isn't going to be able to service your needs. That's a great idea.
Thank you.
Anyone else with anything for Chief? All right, thanks,
good
Chief.
night.
All right, at this point, we will open the floor for public comment. Please state your name and address.
She's starstruck.
Judy Keeling, Colonial Acres, 62180 Arlington Circle. First, I'd like to say I'd be more than glad to be a person to contact for Phase 5, and I could set up what you needed to come into our clubhouse and talk to the people of Phase 5, and I could probably even contact the other phases also. The other thing, I think this is where to ask. I had a call today, a lady trying to get a recycling can. And she called the city, and the city said, call the garbage people. She called the garbage contractor. He said to call Clearview, our management company, which I know does not handle that. So I don't know, Paul, or
Talk to you after the meeting.
will you?
Yeah.
Okay, it's just so I have that information. But thank you, and I'll be glad to be the contact person.
Thanks, Judy, and the city and myself, we may take you up on that if we can get something set up like that.
Also, a lot of the insurance companies have ride systems that go through their insurance companies. A lot of people are afraid to call the insurance company and set them up.
Okay.
Molina, Humana, and all those have them. I discussed with you and some other people about Washington Manor and the new building of the apartments that are right near McMunn Street and the park, McCaddy, that we're concerned about them using it as an easement to go into the city from the and come down the sidewalk late at night and stuff when we're very secluded where we're at. And I think the apartment complex is also looking into other means, and you discussed that maybe they'll have plants and shrubbery and stuff there. And number two, I discussed with you earlier that I have a book that I have sold on Amazon. It's about the history of Faygo, the family that founded them. I have a large Faygo collection, and I have over 300 pictures in the book. It's called The Rise of Faygo. And also, my daughter-in-law, Jennifer Redfern Seiler, has been doing the history tours around town, and they've been very popular, and trying to get the word out on those. And that's about all I have to say.
Steve, and I know your name, but just for the record, would you mind stating your name and address so we have it?
Stephen Seiler.
And address, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, we will close public comment and move on to council comments this evening. Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead and start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things tonight. First, I'd like to compliment the South Lyon Historical Society for having State Representative Kathy Crawford present an historical overview of the Walled Lake Amusement Park and Casino. It certainly was an interesting and informative event. And I'd also like to recognize the Salem South Lyon District Library for two events that they recently held. The first was the Touch a Truck event that took place last week that was supported by a number of companies and municipalities, including the city of South Lyon. So our thanks to Paul Zelnick, Chief Vogel, Chief Sovic, and Ron Beeson for allowing the fire, police, water, and wastewater departments to participate and support this community event. The other SLDL event was a music and Q&A session with Wayne Kramer, guitarist from the MC5 that goes back a few years. It was held on Friday evening. The 2-hour event stretched into 4, with more than 115 people attending, including one individual who drove down from Marquette to be there. So just another great example of the quality programs our library brings to our community. Last, I'd like to encourage everyone to come out for the concert in the park on Friday. At 7 o'clock in the Historical Village. This week we're featuring Gemily. And since it's the fourth Wednesday this week, it's time for the Lake Street Cruise-In. That'll be taking place at 6:30, so make plans to come on out and attend. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. Councilmember Richards?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ditto Steve's comments about our wonderful historical program. It was very captivating, one of the best we've ever had by far. And we had very good attendance, extra seats, but it was just plain wonderful weather, nice night and everything. And she was so entertaining, Mrs. Crawford, to listen to. It was certainly meaningful. Okay. Next one I want to move on to, just to mention quick that this month of June is very active for weddings and birthday parties. And we've had 2 weddings in the village so far, one week before last weekend on Saturday, and one coming up this coming Saturday. During those times, our museum isn't open on Saturday. We don't open up. But we're having weddings right along, okay? Picnics in McCaddy Park have been constant. I go through there almost every day. And birthday parties and no reunion, a little early for reunions, and graduation parties. along with the regular ball games that are going on. So the both ends of the park are getting a lot of use, and I just want to make sure everybody knows that and is very well taken care of by our DPW. The banner downtown, I was there when they strung it, and this is a testament to the mutual cooperation between our DPW and our fire department. And Mr. Donahue, who is left right now, he was down there directing traffic also, and I was on my bicycle in the middle of the street waving too a little bit. Anyway, they put those poles up. I'm estimating, but I think those poles are $3,000 a piece. Okay, and they're put up on the square, and the banner is anchored with line level with a laser beam. Okay, so that the bottom of the banner is exactly 14.6 above the middle of the road. That's a foot higher and 3 inches higher than road code, which is 13 feet 3 inches, I believe. So it's at 14 feet 6 inches. And it has the July 27th celebration for the all-day event on it. Anyway, I just thought I'd let you know that because it's a testament to the cooperation between our departments. Otherwise, we'd have had to hire a rigging company to put something like that up, and it probably cost $2,000 or $3,000. Okay, next one down here, our British Swim Club out on the south end of town is coming along. They're working back in there off and on. I haven't seen too many people in there, but I look in the windows once in a while when I get down there, and there is water in the swimming pool. Okay, it's a pretty big swimming pool, and it's full of water, but there's nobody around and nobody's swimming in it. So and the sign says taking reservations. Okay, whatever that means. Okay, we got a new business in town. Next one and last one. We have a new business coming in. We have an ice cream parlor coming in where Scrooge Barley was, right next to the bakery and just this side of the Third Monk Brewery. And I'm looking forward to it. We need another ice cream parlor, and we need a little more variety in our businesses that are coming into town. We're very glad to have one. Anyway, that's all, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Councilmember Walton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to actually just say that Chief Sophick stole a lot of my comments tonight. I was going to make a comment about the pig and the pork sliders and the trail closing, so that's actually kind of funny. But I do want to say, Lisa, please make sure that you have me on the record as coming into the chamber at 7:35. Thank you. Judy, if you could have your resident maybe come into the city hall and ask for assistance going on the website in ordering the recycling container, because I know when I called, I was told you had to do it online. Maybe that resident doesn't have internet services or just doesn't know how to do it, but someone could probably help them, either at City Hall or at the library. They're very good about that down there. So I'll offer that recommendation. Steve, your Fago book sounds very interesting. I'm going to check into that. But also the library does allow you to rent out or utilize their display cases. I'd love to see a future one.
I have a display over there and everything.
Excellent.
I'm doing a video through
Great.
the Huron Valley video thing on Facebook. I'm doing a thing. And I have some newsletters that are outside that realm. But I did have one more thing to say, if it's possible.
Does anyone have any objection to that?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Steve.
Please.
A friend of mine just died recently. He was the former police chief, Charles Buers. And I'd like to thank the fire department because they did a very class act when he passed away and had the fire truck with the flag up and helped with the pallbearers and everything else. That was a very class act.
Sorry to hear about your loss, but I'm glad to know that we were able to assist and make it a very special day for everyone involved.
He's in my book, too.
Okay, great. Great. The last thing I have here is just a little shout out and thank you to the Southline High School Key Club and Southline Kiwanis, who delivered 60 blankets to Mott's Children's Hospital today in Ann Arbor. That was a pretty awesome thing. So it's just another way our community gets out and supports each other and supports other areas. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Walton. Councilmember Friesian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have two things. Judy, thank you so much for volunteering all of your time and putting that back into the city. You are an exemplary fantastic volunteer, and people should take a leaf out of your book. So thank you. And in that same vein, I'm going to, again, stick with my mantra. If you know anyone who's interested for running for council, please let them know that they can pick up their packets here at City Hall. Let them know that they need to watch the meetings or come to the meetings, and if they have questions, feel free to ask. But get involved, volunteer, even if it's not for council, if it's for any type of board, commission, committee that we have, we could use the volunteers, and it helps to get involved and understand the players in the game and understand the process and the way city government works and functions. So thank you for your time, and thank you to the volunteers who are already out there working hard. We appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you, Councilmember Parisi, and Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you. The sponsors keep coming in for the Lake Street Cruise-In. Special thanks this week goes to Lake Street Tavern right here downtown South Lyon, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about Mary Pool in weeks to come. Lyon Homescape right here in South Lyon. National Mechanics over in Whitmore Lake. Thank you, Whitmore Lake, for investing here in South Lyon. Nita Alexa Studio right here in South Lyon. Performance Creative Resources out of Brighton. Phil Weipert, our county commissioner, and Quicksilver Marketing Solutions out of South Lyon. Roger Colosimo. No matter what event we have in town, Roger is somewhere supporting and sponsoring those events. So Roger, I just think you're just a remarkable business owner in this town, and we're very fortunate to have you. So events like Lake Street Cruise-In, the South Lyon Farmers Market, Pumpkin Fest, are particularly successful because sponsors step up and help with the costs in putting on these events. The permits aren't free, the insurance isn't free, so these sponsors provide a valuable resource to all these events. So I want to thank all the sponsors who help these events become part of the great fabric of our city. Don't forget, we have another great Lake Street Cruise in this Wednesday, 6:30 to 9:30 downtown. And one of the things that's great about the cruise-ins is that please stop by Corner Cafe for their Rib Fest. Yes, there's a Rib Fest going on downtown, and Mike does a fabulous job. I'd also like to thank Kathy Crawford, our state representative in Lansing, for her informative and very, very entertaining discussion held at the Freight House in our historical village regarding the amusement park at Walled Lake. What I found really interesting about the lecture was not so much about the amusement park, because I sort of understood that, heard about it, had friends in that area of town. What I found really interesting about it was how it transitioned from an amusement park into, as Kathy explained, into a conservatory in terms of how they went in and established a land trust was basically what they did to preserve that land, and it is now a passive park. I'm not quite sure how they paid for it, whether it came from private donations or whether that was through a mill, but that was the part of the conversation I found absolutely fascinating. Also, I'd like to thank Kathy Crawford for this incredible guide to festivals throughout the state of Michigan. It has just about every event that you could possibly think of right here, and what Kathy has also done, I'd like to thank her. She has highlighted right here the Farmers Market, South Lyon, Michigan, and she has also highlighted in this flyer that goes throughout the whole state of Michigan our Pumpkin Fest in September. So thank you, Kathy Crawford, for thinking of South Lyon. That's just incredible. You're our state rep, and there's a reason why. Also, I would like to thank Ron Brock at DPW. I'd like to thank Freddie. I want to thank Jeff Ambrovich. I want to thank John and Mike Moretz, Umberto, and all the other DPW personnel who worked so hard cleaning up Paul Baker Park last week. So for everybody who is in the downtown, you really need to thank these gentlemen. Give a wave to a DPW truck when you see it driving through town. I was with Jeff on Monday, and I don't even think he took a lunch. And I'll tell you, he was doing heavy, hard work. All that landscaping on that mound had to be rebalanced. Those trees went in 7 years ago. The landscaping had to be moved around. It was incredible what he did. It was hard digging. Everything was overgrown. He replanted things. They dug out trees that were growing into the pine trees. And then on Tuesday, they were back again. And not only were they finishing the job, but DPW went in, checked all the lamp lights, and now all the lights in Paul Baker Park are actually working. So I just want to say thank you for what you did. They also went in, painted the gazebo, they painted the floor, and then on Wednesday, Councilwoman Walton took the day off and joined me, and we finished the work in Paul Baker Park. We went in and pulled a ton of weeds. We went in and finished the rest of the spring cleanup so that everybody could have an absolutely wonderful, wonderful park to enjoy 4th of July with. So also, one thing that hasn't been brought up is that the fountain in Paul Baker Park has a new water system, a new light system for the fountain. And it's absolutely fabulous. And tonight, if it's kind of dark out, please drive by Paul Baker Park because the colors on it are ready for 4th of July, and they're red, white, and blue, and it is stunning watching that fountain just pour over with all that color on it. So everyone, I would like to say thank you to the DPW, just a hardworking group of gentlemen. Your devotion to the city, I just don't know what to say because people are just so complimentary and thankful for what you did. And of course to Councilwoman Walton, who took a day off from work and came over to Paul Baker Park. So that's it for me.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Kurtzwell. Councilmember Kibble.
Last weekend, we had perfect weather at the farmer's market, and it was cool to see PD and the fire department both being out there and accessible. The kids were having a great time. I felt bad for Chris Fott because the fire engine seemed to get an awful lot more amped up responses from the kids, but there was plenty of them that went into the squad and enjoyed themselves too. So that was real nice. Actually the market itself, it was really vibrant. There was an awful lot of foot traffic in there, so that was terrific as well. I was hoping that we might end up all considering the idea of putting together another visioning session for council, for us to end up just taking a day, a couple of hours on a weekend or something, and see if we can sort of try to plan things together or forecast what things we'd like to end up doing as a body, and also to try to get together with planning. We always end up after the fact, after they've come to conclusions on things, rather than having some idea of if we're all kind of on the same page, or at least we would be able to get a little bit more insight in something that before it happened. So I think both of those things could end up being productive little meetings. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kibble. I'll piggyback off that idea. Not only do I think that's a great idea, I have been, when I've been running into Supervisor Dolan over in Lyon Township, have been kicking around the idea of us doing a joint meeting about just the future game plan for all the communities surrounding us and trying to be on the same page with that. So maybe we can try and drum something up, obviously one for our own self, but involving the communities that are surrounding us too. So I like that idea. Briefly, I do have a few things this evening. I can't thank Doug Anderson enough from People's Express tonight. And Chief Vogel and Chief Sovic and everyone, I mean, this is going to have an impact relatively soon on a big group of people in our community. So we need to be prepared to try and help alleviate this issue. So I think we've got some good ideas we kicked around already here tonight. But if you think of something later, don't be shy, because we're going to need to come up with a solution for that. I want to remind everyone the American Legion golf outing is July 27th. Come on out. It's for a great cause. The American Legion, along with the VFW, helps support our veterans and the veterans in our community. And so it'll be a doubleheader. We'll do the golf outing, and then we're hitting the car show. So hopefully we'll see you guys out there. It'll be a fun day outside. And then the last thing I had is I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm planning on meeting with City Attorney Wilhelm and City Manager Zelenik to start discussing how we'd like to handle the annual review later this year with his job performance and possible raise and stuff like that. So I will hopefully be having that meeting here in the next week or so, and we'll get those details out to everybody. So with that, Steve, really quick, I thank you for staying. In regards to the wall and issues with the Washington Apartments, I did bring that up when I met the owners. They seemed incredibly involved and committed to their investment. From what I've taken away on the drawings and stuff, this is going to be a really nice addition to the community, and he is open to helping your community or, isolated area, feeling, alleviating any issues you may have. And maybe you and I and him and the city manager can sit down. I would have to look up his contact info, but I have your card, and if I'm able to set something like that up, I will certainly reach out to you, and we'll all sit down together on that, okay? All right. With that, I will look for a motion to adjourn this evening.
We have to do a motion, Mayor, to
Oh,
go
that's
into
right.
closed session.
We got more work to do. I apologize. Okay, so no, we're not going to look for a motion to adjourn. We will bring in City Attorney Wilhelm. Tim, do you just want to do the roll call and go into this? Do you need to say anything?
So Matt Zaleski from my office is handling this litigation. There's a request to go into closed session under Section 8E and H. E is to discuss trial and settlement strategy, and H is, there's a letter dated, I forget the date of the letter. June 10th?
June
17th?
14th.
June 14th. So you have two bases. Each of them require 2/3 votes, which is 5 votes, and in closed session, if that vote is achieved, and we'll discuss the litigation.
Does anyone have any questions for Tim before we do a roll call vote?
I'll make a motion that we go to closed session pursuant to Section 8C and B of the Open Meetings Act, MCL 125.
E and H. Elephant.
Oh, man. I should have changed my contacts before the meeting. Excuse me. E and H. Wow, good catch. Okay, 125.268 E and H, to consult with attorney regarding trial settlement strategy in the pending lawsuit Alexander's Polish American Restaurant v. City of South Lyon.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Lisa, would you mind doing a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
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 No.
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 Yes. Discussion. Would anyone like to share as why they have denied the city its right to speak to its representation on this issue?
I'll say something.
Councilmember Kurtzwell?
I don't vote for closed meetings, and I think you know that. There's nothing contained in here that the public doesn't already know about.
Councilmember Richards?
Normally, I'm in favor of closed sessions if they're necessary, to something really vital, top secret and everything, but not this time. The city, everybody in town knows about this. It's dragged on since 2015, I believe. And personally, I believe the city's position is super strong. There's no way they're going to lose.
Excuse me, Councilmember Richards, please
Okay,
be
I'm sorry.
courteous of what it is you're discussing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Retract that statement. Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to add? Councilmember Walton?
I will say the same thing. I've never voted to go into any closed session, so I'm going
Right.
to stick with that.
Great. Councilmember Friesen, do you have anything?
I just want to state, I want to clarify with the city attorney and put it out there for our constituents. It's not, the Open Meetings Act is state law, and it provides the city protection in order to speak to our attorneys to discuss sensitive matters, especially pertaining to strategic efforts that we need to take in court. So this is an important piece of litigation that's come through that is important for us to discuss with our attorneys privately. Generally speaking, when you speak with an attorney, you have attorney-client privilege. That's afforded to plaintiff, it's afforded to defendant. In this case, we should be able to have that same opportunity to speak with our attorney in private and be able to come up with a plan and strategize for our defense. And this moment right now is not allowing that to happen, just for the record.
Thank you, Councilmember Friesen. I will also add to that I feel like all three of you have put the city in a position, a not you are putting us in a position where we can't take advantage of something that's going to allow us to take a position on this. So I'm very disappointed in your decision to do this. Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, you're not acting very mayoral. You have different opinions on council, and that's the bottom line.
Well-
You seem to get offended when people don't rubber stamp what you want done. And I think that's what the public finds offensive about you, is that you don't allow people on council to have different opinions. You sit there and attack, and nobody is jeopardizing the city. If you have an opinion, talk to Tim. Everybody knows about this. Everybody has an opinion about this. There's no secrets in here. I just don't think that the personal attacks are appropriate. You have different opinions about transparency in government, and that's the way it is. There's no reason to get upset about it.
Oh, I'm not upset.
Oh, I think you are.
No, I just love
You're
the fact
acting
that
upset.
no, here's how you like to operate, and this is all I'm going to say about the issue. We all have an email address, telephones, and I know you like to preach how you're not on social media. God bless you. But God forbid someone reaches out in advance to give us a heads up that, you know what, hey, here's where I stand on this, instead of just a gotcha moment like you've been doing for the last 3.5 years up here. It's
I don't like the
ridiculous.
personal attacks.
Yeah,
I do
no
believe
personal
those are
attack.
against Robert's rules.
Yeah.
You were not recognized by the mayor to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah. Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to say something.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
To the citizens of South Lyon, I voted the way I did because I feel it's a disservice to the citizens to go into a closed session for this matter, okay? When we can resolve this whole thing right in an open meeting, maybe not tonight, but it can easily be resolved. And we don't need, it'll just cost the city and both parties more money. And my idea would be to save a number of thousands of dollars, okay, by eliminating closed session. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councilmember Richards. Mr. Wilhelm, please.
I just want to add a unique perspective from the city attorney. Matt Zaleski from my office is here as well. You certainly have the prerogative to vote to go into closed session or not. I just want to clarify that this was largely at our request. We have not had the opportunity to present any information or discuss the litigation in any fashion, the facts, the claims asserted, and the general strategy for dealing with it with this body as a whole. This was our request, and from our perspective, I certainly understand the prerogative of people to vote yes or no, but this is our request and our opportunity to meet with our client and provide our legal advice, answer questions. That may be helpful to you as politicians so that you understand the litigation. If there are questions that come up in the community, you can know about it and have had the opportunity to be informed. And when we don't know whether we can get to a closed session and deal with our clients, at some point, this is not going to create an emergency, but in my experience, this type of vote has caused problems in the past, and I just want you to see our perspective. This was simply our opportunity to advise you, do our job for this council. We don't get to talk to you in closed doors under any other circumstances unless it's by statute. So again, I recognize, acknowledge, and we will all abide by your prerogative, but I just want to add that perspective to fill out the picture from what I heard tonight.
All right, well, we've had the roll call vote. We do not have the votes to go into closed session this evening.
I move to adjourn.
Yep.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a great night, all.